section called Separating Myth from Fact. Now, wouldn't this be more well-known if it worked? The reality is misinformation is the norm. The medical community is not in the business of healing. It's in the business of treating symptoms. So, like I said, misinformation is normal, especially with how food affects our children's bodies. Now, there are a lot of variables that aren't talked about when people talk about things like food. Okay, so for example, one person said, well, I tried to go gluten-free and my son gained 20 pounds in 2 months, or that fat or meat is bad. The reality is everything depends, right? If someone's eating sick or diseased meat, of course it's bad. You know, most people just lump everything together. But if you're eating organic, grass-fed beef, then it's really good for you. When people avoid gluten, what they do is they typically replace it with gluten-free foods that are worse in most cases than foods with gluten in it. So you have to look at the entire picture, which I've never seen people do. So what we're doing is we're looking at all angles of everything. And there's been a ton of major discoveries within the past 5 years. Things like the gut-brain connection, advances in neuroscience, and our understanding of how the brain works in general. Large-scale clinical trials, they can take years to complete and are extremely expensive. So what we've learned in the past 5 years may take 10 years to enter that, common knowledge type area. Because, okay, we do a small study and now we need to do a large-scale clinical trial. It takes literally years of putting together, writing things and getting funding and then finding participants and doing the studies. It's just an incredible process. So, and the other thing is public opinion does take a long time to sway. Most people get their information through sources that aren't very accurate. And most people believe that the food pyramid is still awesome, and that's what we need to do because that's what we're taught, and the reality is completely different. Are you guys getting this? Are you guys seeing this? Good. All right, the next one is the government protects us and wouldn't let us buy things that harm us. That's just crazy to me. Who are the biggest sponsors of sporting events? I betcha it's beer companies, McDonald's, both of which are extremely harmful. The number one cause of death in America is heart disease. Yet we, let a company like McDonald's that contributes more to heart disease than anyone else be the prime advertiser. Now, there's this belief, and I think it's common among all of us, that if it's on the shelf, it's safe and doesn't affect us because it had to have passed through all these rigorous studies and everything else. And the system in the U.S. is different than all other parts of the world. And in the U.S., it's innocent until proven guilty, where in the rest of the world, it's guilty until proven innocent. So there's 80,000 chemicals used in the U.S. 200 have been tested for safety, and only 5 have been regulated by the EPA. There are chemicals in our food and our household products, literally everywhere, that we don't know the effect that it has on a developing body and brain. Or if we do know that it causes, let's say, cancer or endocrine disruption or brain malfunction in rats and other animal studies, it's going to take years and years and millions of dollars for those studies to come out that they hurt humans. So in the meantime, we're just consuming and poisoning our children. So the next one, I grew up eating like that and I am fine. The reality, people, is that things have changed. And you're fine. Are you really, though? Look at the charts. Obesity, diabetes, cancer, neurodegenerative disease, everything is like up and to the right all the time. Every year, it's more and more. Autism is not just this isolated thing. It's an epidemic now. One MIT researcher predicts that 50% of kids and 80% of boys will have autism by 2032. 80% of boys. Okay, so here's one example of how things are different now. The majority of our crops are sprayed with a weed killer called Roundup. I'm sure you guys have heard of it. They have it at Home Depot. Now, the active ingredient in Roundup is called glyphosate, which is not the friendly weed killer that its manufacturer, Monsanto, wants us to believe. Now, we're going to be getting into more detail on this next week, but just from a high level, 15 times more glyphosate is allowed on corn than was allowed in 1996. 15 times more. is being sprayed. And the EPA has increased what it's considered to be a safe amount of glyphosate by a factor of 17. So they've said, okay, every year you can have more and more. So what suddenly changed where it was safe and now it was a safe amount, and then now we can just continue to ratchet it up. Okay, I'll just show you this graph quickly. Autism prevalence in 6-year-olds, and this is, on the one axis is how much glyphosate is sprayed on our corn and soy, and then the other is incidence of autism. Now, correlation doesn't indicate causation. That said, it's pretty compelling. Glyphosate ingestion, as well as other toxins, they have a real detrimental effect on our child's immune function through destruction of our bacteria, good bacteria in our gut. And while we're going to be going into more detail on this and how we can prevent that going forward. You guys seeing how this could be pretty bad for our kids who have sensitive systems? Yeah. Okay, food and supplementation don't matter. Let kids be kids. There's nothing you can do anyway. This was the approach taken by my pediatrician. And the reality is food and supplements matter more now than ever before. What you put in your body fundamentally changes your gut biome, your gene expression, brain function, hormones, everything. Consider this. Everything that we eat and drink will affect our energy levels, susceptibility to infections, propensity to certain types of cancer, type 2 diabetes, celiac and Crohn's disease, conditions of our arteries, likelihood of heart attack or stroke. If you have an allergy, if you eat a peanut and you have a peanut allergy, you could die. And obviously everyone knows about drinking alcohol, how it can affect our brain function. And none of what I said, none of it is controversial. So why is the fact that diet can affect our extra sensitive brains of our children on the autism spectrum still in dispute? Like, why is that even a question? It blows my mind.